Alright, VIP of Bizarre Interest Productions, and last time, assuming I am uploading this in proper production order I intended it to be, I talked about the Naruto characters that should get Hito Shinju or Evil Echo Fighters in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. As of when that video is getting uploaded, I have no idea whether or not it's going to do well, but given how Chapter 22 has been, pretty interesting to see the reactions of both people, positive and negative. This video was also made to address an issue people have claimed to be with how Boruto has been handling its side characters, and the fact that the anime having to expand on the manga doesn't necessarily make it a positive. I'm on two minds, because if I was stuck making a monthly manga and I couldn't put all the characterization I wanted, I would definitely use the anime as a way to springboard off of that, and Boruto's not the first anime to have done so, but I do agree the base story is the root cause of it that actually needs to have things set up for said characters to be doing stuff throughout the story. Last time we talked about how this benefited the original cast, but in a twisted sense of fate, having some of Boruto's generation become Shinju actually wouldn't be a bad idea. Think about it. Part of the issue some people had with both Boruto and Naruto was that only members of the rising generation that were only Team 7 and Team 10 got focus. Granted, there are ways people could have mitigated that without making hundreds of chapters dedicated to said characters, but looking at Boruto in particular, Team 10 still has some setup with Matsuri and the fallout from their fight with Jiraiya, and Ijonojin beating in the hospital. While I personally want Sumire to do more in terms of combat and struggling, more in her trying to be the sane one as a spy to ensure Amato's ambitions are counterintuitive, at least she's still around. But yeah, a lot of new characters really could have been using a story more, and given the part of the ongoing story arc is about the Claw Grimes biting people and incapacitating them, with the stronger ones becoming Shinju of mass potential destruction of the user's identity and skill set but with more power. Yeah, this is a personal excuse to either have the new generation fight the people whose likeness is being taken, or better yet, if it's their friends, allies, or rivals, the fellow members of the new generation. So let's talk about which characters from Boruto's generation should become Shinju. And just like the last video, no particular order, and I know I said place, but the order is arbitrary in the grand scheme of things. Also, I am using the manga and anime, so I'm not limited. If you made it this far into the video, type Jiraiya Supremacy, and let's get started. First up is Ijonojin. Well, how Team 10 are received are weird. Taking everything into account, like outside of the arguments they are like their parents, I feel like Shikadai is the one who gets the least hated, especially since him and Boruto are close friends early on. And Ijonojin and Chocho have just as many people who like and dislike them. Hell, I've seen people not care Ijonojin died because they don't like his character. Well, given that he's hospitalized right now, if it turned out to be Claw Grimes passing around the village, any of the Hito Shinju could just swipe him and have the mooks devour him in one Ijonojin Echo Fighter coming up. Also, you don't have to like a character, but him getting turned would do actually a fair bit for the story. The heartbreak Ino would face upon realizing that not helping Boruto Shikamaru causing her son's likeness to be used against the village would be so intriguing to watch. You got his teammates that be forced to fight him, and think about poor Himawari. Hima and Ijonojin had a close friendship the anime and light novels went more into detail about, and her awakening of Kurama's synergy with her resulting in her being able to save his life gets more tragic if she has to fight a dark version of him after going through all of that to save him. The more I think about it, the more sense it makes for this to happen. Meadow Lee is second, and okay. Ikimoto has joked in the manga that he's not getting any focus, and while it feels like the story doesn't want to use him, people talking about Boruto use a lot of bad faith criticisms to spread as valid criticism, but with Meadow, the Hito Shinju are a perfect way to bring him into the story, since if he gets eaten and gets one with his own likeness, this causes several factors into play. Lee or Guy get brought into the story, Iwabe and Denki have to show up in the manga and explain what happened to him, Udon shows up because Konohamaru would feel bad since his friend's Genin was taken. That being said, if we're only using characters who showed up in the manga, this might be a good opportunity for Shikadai to step as a leader for the new generation to make a strategy on taking him down. Especially since early on in the anime, it was Boruto and Shikadai that were trying to appeal and help out Meadow Lee. Personally, I prefer his father to get Hito Shinju so Meadow's character is active and can do something, but I'd be fine with either one happening. Okay, next one is Sumire. Here's the big one people are going to be talking about. Sumire being devoured and getting a Hito Shinju just causes so much intrigue and chaos in the narrative. Think about it. Boruto's the reason she turned against destroying the village in the first place. Mitsuki never trusted her at all in the first place. She's got her friendship with Sadara and Chocho. Then there's Kotatsuke, plus you got her connection with Nue that hasn't been used in the manga yet. The villains are trying to figure out who the heroes are getting intel from, or the source of the hero's strength from. And if they can't reach Kashin Koji, Amato, Ada, and Sumire on the chopping block. A dark Sumire with mastery over Nue's ability to absorb chakra and feed off negative energy is one hell of an intriguing matchup for any of her fellow allies, even Kawaki to go up against, especially since Sumire is immune to omnipotence for reasons we're not 100% sure of yet. So here's a character everyone has stated that they like, Mirai. Which is funny because when they adapted her novel into the Boruto anime, people despised, well, not her, but her arc for some reason, and then switched up and loved her role in the manga despite telling the same story with very few changes. And Mirai becoming a Shinju would make a solid threat. She's got strong genjutsu and skills combining that of her father and mother, and is an all-arounder in genjutsu, taijutsu, the blades, someone entrusted to protect Kakashi despite being a chunin. So her getting taken out and getting a Hito Shinju with all those skills would be a big deal. Imagine being able to say Kurenai's daughter managed to become an effective threat in the story would actually be a pipe dream. But one that wouldn't be too impossible to happen. Next up, Shizuma. Shizuma might be one of the more divisive Boruto anime villains, but for those who want more recurring villains in their franchise that just don't go away or get killed, his story and escape is far from over, and his crimes would actually make him a perfect fit to be introduced in the Boruto manga properly as a character from the mist. The Shinju have already targeted the sand and the leaf, and while the criticisms for the franchise being so leaf-censored, when most of the protagonists from the leaf are silly, are when you look at it, the Claw Grimes going after anyone in pursuit of Boruto and Kawaki throughout the world does allow for its use of world building. When it comes to the other villages, the Kage becoming Shinju might be a little bit risky, so the best bet would be to use their aides like with Omoi, but why not use an active recurring villain who's still out there in terms of the lore? I didn't necessarily figure out targets for each person at the beginning of the script, but given his background, I'd say Chojuro, Boruto, Mitsuki were all people responsible for his first defeat and demise of his plan. And let's be honest, this is the closest you're getting to a Shinju Kisame if that ever happens, and I'm all here for that. Now for some curveball picks, and I know people are going to go, what the F? Why Tento? Well, after the exams in the manga and after the Hozuki Castle arc in the anime, Boruto became a pseudo-mentor to Tento, teaching the son of the Daimyo Shuriken techniques and helping against Shoji. I didn't originally consider him for this list until I double-checked, and one of the recent chapters with Ikkyu Madoka, the Daimyo of the Land of Fire, returning to the story with the threat of capturing Boruto and Shikamaru's heads. So the idea of his son becoming a Hito Shinju with good aim and becoming a threat and leaving him no choice but to ask Boruto, who he doesn't know was the one who trained his son and actually be Tento's bodyguard in the first place, thanks to omnipotence to save him, is pretty damn juicy for drama if you ask me. Next up is Yuri. Okay, I know... Okay, are you Yuri? Okay, I know this is going to seem like a troll pick, but the Cloud Village has never gotten a chance to give the new generation kids any spotlight after the exams. Like, Team Shinki fans, you're feasting right now. The Stone had one kid in the anime you could at least empathize with, and the Mist... Wait, Kakura's dead. Okay, at least they have Boontown. Yeah, the Cloud Village has, like, no kids the audience likes because they were all fodder for the Leaf Village in the tournament. Although I will say if I had between Boruto without a mental nerf and Yuri back then, could have gone hard. That being said, the Cloud has the least involved in Boruto's plot in the anime and manga, with only Omoi getting involved. Granted, I can see the Cloud putting their getting through intense training to not be humiliated again, and Dadori would be more proactive in trying to stop the Claw Grimes, but Yuri's powers of using bubblegum would make him pretty unique with a more dangerous Hito Shinju running amok with his power set and abilities. So, next up is Tsubaki. I remember seeing people think she was going to be the one who trained Boruto in sword combat before or during the time skip. But with that being said, Tsubaki ended up being well received as a character, so her showing up in the manga as a Shinju has a bunch of possibilities, especially since Boruto and Sumire are the ones she actually has ties to. He helped her acclimate to her team in the village more, and she basically took Sumire's place on Team 15. Wait, you can have 4 Genin on a team. So that depends if Sumire is ready to return to the story as an official ninja. That being said, her getting a Hito Shinju reopens world-building present already. Remember, one of Kara's major facilities was in the Land of Iron, a place outside the shinobi system, but has a perfect location for her or any samurai to get trapped in and symbolized by the antagonist. At least she get or make for a solid opponent at worst, but it'd just be cool to see her again. Next up is Oga. Bet you weren't expecting her. Yeah, amongst all of Kara's members besides Code, every inner is either dead or betrayed the organization, except for Oga. Okay, who technically betrayed the organization, but it's not like she didn't have a choice. There's no contradiction to her existence either way. She was basically the explanation for why Kawaki has a Roman numeral 9. But hinted at Amato's intentions. We know she can fight. And she promised Boruto that she would meet her again one day. And Juro using the knowledge he gained from Code about Kara and the Inners could lead him to track her down and turn her into a Shinju. So in a way, her promise to Boruto would be met, just under some really harsh conditions. Though he would obviously do his best to save her. And my last choice is Ryuki. Bet you weren't expecting him to be a part of this list, huh? Well, I thought about it, and Boruto doesn't have any living antagonists who can show up again. Why not just use Ryuki? Yes, people complain he's diet Hidan, but that was the point. Having some of Hidan's powers would actually make his Shinju an effective killer, or someone with a bloodlust of someone willing to kill, and lead more people to their deaths, which is kind of what the Shinju are aiming for anyway. I mean, they are remnants of the Ten Tails, and the Ten Tails want the destruction of all of life. Though we know that Heitu Shinju are just trying to figure out what their goal is right now, but with him on by their side, it would be interesting to see how the other Heitu Shinju react to him. But yeah, my choices may sound like I'm on something that's not sleep, fatigue, or questionable choices in my career and ambitions, but I thought it'd be a fun conversation to be had. And given that this video is coming out much later than usual, I figured these random ideas could be at least be a fun topic. Even though I think half of these could happen if they locked in. But let me know who you guys would want to see get their own Shinju from the Boruto generation. Or if you didn't watch the first video, what characters you like to see from the Naruto generation get their own Shinju. Alright, that's all for me, and BIP of Bizarre Productions, signing off.